I was at that cozy little dive bar downtown when I first bumped into Alex. My friend, Jess, dragged me there after work, promising it'd be a chill night. Little did I know, it would change everything. "Come on, Tasha, it'll be fun. Plus, you need to get out more," Jess had insisted, her arm looped through mine as we navigated through the crowded space, filled with the hum of conversations and the occasional clink of glasses. I was scanning the room, taking in the mismatched furniture and dim lighting, when I accidentally collided with someone. "Watch where you're going," I blurted out, before even looking up. "Sorry about that," a deep, amused voice responded. It was Alex. His apology came with a grin that, despite my irritation, I found disarmingly charming. Jess, ever the social butterfly, jumped in. "Oh, hey Alex. Didn't know you hung out here too. This is my friend I've been telling you about." Alex extended his hand, still smiling. "Nice to meet you, I'm Alex. Seems like fate's got a funny way of introducing us." I shook his hand, feeling a weird mix of annoyance and curiosity. "I'm Tasha. I'm sure fate's got better things to do," I retorted, trying to match his casual demeanor. We found a table, and the night unfolded with laughter and stories. Alex worked as a manager at a car company, a job that seemed to suit his confident, easygoing nature. "You gotta roll with the punches, you know? Can't let the small stuff get you down," he said at one point, shrugging off a question about work stress. I talked about my job as a kindergarten teacher, how every day was a mix of chaos and joy. Kids are brutally honest, no filters whatsoever. "But it's refreshing, keeps you grounded," I explained. As the night wore on, I found myself drawn to Alex's straightforwardness and sense of humor. He didn't mince words, and neither did I. It was comfortable talking to him. "You two seem to hit it off," Jess teased, nudging me as Alex went to grab us another round of drinks. "I guess he's not too bad," I conceded, watching him navigate through the crowd with an ease that seemed to come naturally to him. When Alex returned, he handed me a beer, our fingers brushing slightly. "Thought you might like this one. It's my favorite." "Thanks," I said, taking a sip. It was good, actually. "So, what's a car company manager doing in a dive bar like this? Shouldn't you be at some fancy cocktail place?" Alex laughed, a genuine, hearty sound. "Nah, this is more my speed. Real people, real conversations. None of that pretentious crap." The night ended with promises to meet up again, no specifics, just a mutual understanding that we'd both like that. As Jess and I walked back to her car, she nudged me. "See? I told you it'd be fun." And we didn't disappoint her by getting married 6 months later. After 5 years of trying and failing to start a family, life decided to throw us another curveball. My father-in-law, the one person in Alex's family who'd always been kind to me, passed away. That left Eleanor, my mother-in-law, all alone in that big, creaky mansion of hers. Alex thought it'd be a good idea to move in with her. "It's the right thing to do," he'd said one night, trying to sound convincing. "She's all alone now, and we can save some money on rent." I wasn't buying it. "Live with Eleanor? Are you out of your mind? She's made it pretty clear she can't stand me," I shot back, frustration boiling over. Our apartment might have been cramped, but it was our space, free from judgmental glares and snide remarks about my inability to conceive. Alex sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know it's not ideal, but she's my mom and she needs us. Plus, we're barely scraping by as it is." I knew he was right about the money, but the thought of facing Eleanor's cold shoulder every day was like agreeing to live in a lion's den. "Fine," I finally agreed, but the minute she starts in on me about not having kids, I'm not holding back. The day we moved in, Eleanor greeted us with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome," she said, her voice as chilly as the drafty halls of the mansion. "I suppose we'll have to make do with each other." "Thanks, Mom. We really appreciate it," Alex replied, ever the diplomat. I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The first few weeks were tough. Eleanor made no secret of her displeasure at having me around. "You're doing it all wrong," she'd snipe as I tried to navigate my way around the kitchen or tidy up the living room. Her words were like barbs, each one a reminder that I was an outsider in her world. One evening, as I was attempting to make dinner, Eleanor came in, watching me like a hawk. "You're cutting the vegetables too big," she commented, her voice dripping with disdain. I clenched the knife a little tighter, my patience wearing thin. "Well, Eleanor, why don't you show me how it's done, then? Since you're the expert," I shot back, the words bitter on my tongue. She huffed, crossing her arms over her chest. "I shouldn't have to. A proper wife would know how to do these things." That was the last straw. "Look, I'm here because your son asked me to be, not because I enjoy your company. So, how about you back off and let me cook?" Eleanor looked taken aback, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. For a moment, I thought she might actually apologize, but then she turned on her heel and left the kitchen, muttering something about ungrateful children. A few months into our living arrangement with Eleanor, Alex hit me with a bombshell over breakfast. "I've been thinking, maybe you should quit your job and stay home," he said, not meeting my eye. I almost choked on my coffee. Quit my job? Why on earth would I do that? He shuffled his feet, looking uncomfortable. "Well, with Mom's health and all, we need someone to take care of her. And the house. It's a lot, and hiring a nurse plus a housekeeper? That's gonna drain us dry." I was floored. "So, you want me to become what? A full-time maid and nurse?" The thought of leaving my job, the kids I taught, it felt like he was asking me to give up a part of myself. "It's not like that," Alex protested. "It's just temporary. Until we figure something else out." I spent days mulling over it, arguing back and forth. In the end, the financial logic won out, but it felt like defeat. "Fine, I'll do it. But this is temporary, right?" I said, the word temporary tasting bitter. Transitioning from a kindergarten teacher to a full-time housewife was rough. I missed the chaos of the classroom, the joy of seeing a child's eyes light up when they learned something new. Instead, I found myself knee-deep in laundry, dust, and the endless task of trying to please Eleanor. At first, Eleanor seemed to take a perverse pleasure in critiquing my every move. "You're not cleaning that right," she'd say, watching me struggle with the ancient vacuum cleaner that seemed to cough dust rather than collect it. Or during dinner, "This chicken is dry. Didn't your mother teach you how to cook?" I bit my tongue, reminding myself this was all temporary. But as the days turned into weeks, something shifted. Maybe it was the day Eleanor found me crying over a burnt casserole, or maybe she just got tired of eating poorly seasoned food, but she started to soften. "Here, let me show you how to make my meatloaf," she offered one day, her voice lacking its usual sharpness. Alex always loved it as a boy. Cooking with Eleanor was a revelation. Under her guidance, I started to actually enjoy it. We found common ground in the kitchen, of all places. I even began reading to her, newspapers at first, then novels. Our conversations grew, branching out from the mundane to the personal. I learned about Alex as a child, about my father-in-law, about the history of the family I'd married into. I thought Alex would be pleased to see his mother and me getting along. Instead, he seemed more distant. "That's great," he'd say, barely looking up from his phone when I told him about Eleanor's stories from his childhood, or the new recipe we'd mastered together. It was like he was there, but not really. "Don't you care that your mom and I are finally getting along?" I asked him one night, frustration boiling over. He looked up, surprised. "Of course, I do. It's just, work's been crazy. You know how it is." But I didn't, not really. Our worlds were drifting apart, him with his late nights, and me with my days filled with cleaning, cooking, and caring for Eleanor. His detachment stung, a reminder of the gap that had opened up between us, a gap that no amount of housework or caregiving seemed able to bridge. As time went on, I couldn't help but notice Alex's behavior changing. He started coming home later and later, always saying work was to blame. "It's just slammed at the office," he'd tell me, barely looking up from his dinner. It wasn't just the late nights, though. He began sleeping in the spare room, claiming he didn't want to disturb me with his restless nights. Then there was Sarah, Alex's sister, who seemed to enjoy poking fun at me whenever she visited. "Nice place you've got here. Fits you perfectly, old and kinda sad," she'd say with a snicker, glancing around the mansion with disdain. Every time she showed up, it was like she had a sixth sense for when we were struggling the most. "Mum, I need some money," she'd demand, not even a hello. And like clockwork, Eleanor would open her purse, no questions asked. Eleanor's health was on a steady decline, and one day, it hit a new low. She couldn't even get herself into the bath. She called for Sarah, who was over at the time, but all she got was a cold shoulder. "I'm not here to bathe you, Mother." "Figure it out," Sarah snapped, before storming out. Hearing the hurt in Eleanor's voice as she cried broke something in me. I found her in her room, tears streaming down her face. "I'll help you," I said softly, putting aside the years of tension between us. From that day on, our relationship took a turn I never expected. She started opening up, treating me more like a daughter than an unwanted guest. Amidst all this, Alex dropped another bombshell: he'd bought an apartment near his work. "It's easier with the late hours. Saves me the commute," he explained one evening, almost as an afterthought. Curious, I asked to see it. "Can I visit? Just to see where you're staying?" His reaction was swift and sharp. "It's just a basic place, nothing to see. Not a museum." The real kicker came from Eleanor, of all people. One quiet afternoon, she pulled me aside, her voice barely above a whisper. "He bought that apartment with my money. Put it in my name, too. Even the utility bills come out of my account." I was stunned. How had things gotten to this point? The man I gave up my career for was leading a double life funded by his mother. And here I was, caught in the middle of a family I was trying to fit into, now bound by secrets and lies. The mansion, once a symbol of decay and neglected history, began its transformation on a chilly morning that promised change. I had spent countless nights researching, planning, and dreaming. The thought of Sarah's mocking words spurred me on, igniting a fire within me to prove her wrong. I approached Eleanor with my proposal, armed with sketches and color swatches. "Eleanor, I've been thinking," I started, hesitating only for a moment. "The house, it's beautiful, but it could use some love. What do you say we give it a bit of a facelift?" Eleanor peered at me over her reading glasses, the corners of her mouth twitching. "You want to fix up this old place?" she asked, skepticism woven through her words. "Yes, I think it could really brighten things up. Make it feel more like a home again," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. To my surprise, Eleanor warmed to the idea. "Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to freshen things up a bit. Lord knows it's been ages since anything new happened around here." Encouraged by her agreement, I threw myself into the work. The days blurred into a symphony of paint splatters, wallpaper glue, and the screech of sandpaper against wood. Eleanor would often sit by, watching as I transformed her home, piece by piece. Sometimes, she'd even offer a tip or two, her tone softer, almost nostalgic. Back in my day, we would have chosen a more subdued color. "But I must admit, this brightness brings a certain life to the room," Eleanor commented one afternoon as I stepped back to admire the newly painted living room walls. Eleanor couldn't hide her delight. She started inviting her old friends over, showing off the renovations with a pride I hadn't seen in her before. "Look what my daughter has done," she'd boast, her arm around me. It was the first time she'd ever referred to me that way in public, and it warmed my heart. Alex, however, was less than pleased. On one of his rare visits from his apartment, he walked around the house with a frown, inspecting my handiwork like a disapproving inspector. "What have you done to my house?" he finally exploded, anger in his voice. You think you can just take over? Before I could respond, Eleanor intervened. This is still my house, and I say it's never looked better. She's done what none of us bothered to do for years, she declared, her voice sharp, leaving no room for argument. Alex's anger faltered under his mother's gaze, and without another word, he turned and left, the echo of his departure hanging heavy in the air. In the silence that followed, Eleanor turned to me, her expression softening. Don't mind him. He doesn't understand. But I do. Thank you. The mansion's transformation was more than just a change of scenery, it was a rebirth, for the house and for us. In repairing its walls, I had somehow begun to mend the fabric of our family, weaving Eleanor and me closer together. The day Eleanor fell ill, everything changed. The doctors said it was a stroke, and suddenly, the mansion felt more like a tomb than a home. I was there, every day, at the hospital, holding her hand, talking to her even when she couldn't respond. Alex? Sarah? They were nowhere to be seen. It was as if they couldn't be bothered, their own mother lying there, a shadow of her former self. When Eleanor finally came home, it was a bittersweet victory. She was bedridden, a mere whisper of the formidable woman she once was. That's when Alex and Sarah decided to show up, not out of concern, but greed. I overheard them one day, in the drawing room, voices low but greedy. The house should go to me, Alex was saying. I'm the eldest. It only makes sense. Sarah snorted. You think I'm just going to step aside? She promised me the jewelry, the antiques. I've got plans for those. Their mother, their own flesh and blood, was lying helpless, not 10 feet away, and here they were, divvying up her possessions like vultures circling a carcass. Fury boiled inside me. I stormed into the room, unable to hold back. How dare you? She's still here, still fighting, and this is how you honor her? By fighting over her things like she's already gone? They turned to me, surprise and irritation flashing in their eyes. This is family business, Alex snapped. Stay out of it. Sarah just sneered. What would you know about it? You're just the help. But I wasn't just the help. I was the one who stayed by Eleanor's side, the one who cared. So, I did what they couldn't. I took care of her, day and night. I learned how to do the exercises the physiotherapist recommended, gently coaxing her limbs to move. I massaged her stiff muscles, encouraging circulation, whispering encouragement as if my words could heal. And slowly, miraculously, Eleanor began to improve. First, it was a flicker of movement, then a mumbled word. Days turned into weeks, and she started eating on her own, taking shaky steps around her room. Alex and Sarah couldn't hide their disappointment, their greedy plans crumbling as Eleanor regained her strength. I don't understand, Alex muttered one day, watching his mother navigate the hallway with her walker. I thought the doctors said. They underestimated her. I cut in, not bothering to hide my disdain. Seems like you did, too. Eleanor, for her part, seemed to thrive on proving them wrong. With every step, every word, she reclaimed a piece of herself that had been lost to the stroke. And I, who had once felt like an outsider in this family, found a sense of purpose and belonging I hadn't known I was missing. And then the unexpected happened, a second stroke, and Eleanor passed away. The day of the funeral was draped in a somber gray, the sky mourning Eleanor as much as any of us. The service had just ended, the air still thick with grief and whispered condolences, when Alex made his entrance. Not alone, but with a woman clutching his arm and 2 young children in tow. The whispers grew louder, curiosity and shock mingling in the air. This is Marissa, my wife, and these are our kids, Alex introduced them, his voice devoid of the hesitation I'd expected. My world, already unsteady from loss, seemed to tilt further. Your wife? I echoed, the words bitter on my tongue. And you think you can just waltz back here and take over? Alex's gaze was defiant. This is my family's home. We belong here. Sarah's laughter cut through the tension. Looks like you're out, dear. Mum's money, the house, it's all going to be properly managed now. Their audacity left me reeling, but I was spared from responding by the arrival of the notary, a briefcase in hand. If I may, it's time to read Eleanor's will. We gathered in the living room, the very heart of the mansion Eleanor had loved so dearly. The air was thick with anticipation and, on my part, a sliver of hope. Alex and Sarah were smirking, confident in their victory, until the notary's words shattered their expectations. To my daughter-in-law, who has shown me more kindness and love than I could have ever expected, I leave my entire estate, including the mansion and all financial assets. The room went silent. Alex's face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen before, while Sarah's mouth hung open in disbelief. "This can't be right," Alex exploded. "She's manipulated everything." Sarah chimed in, her voice shrill. "You're nothing but a con artist." The notary, unfazed, pressed a button on a small device he'd pulled from his briefcase. Eleanor's voice filled the room, her image appearing on a screen. "I've made my decision with a clear mind," she said, looking directly into the camera. "My son and daughter have been absent, concerned more with what they could inherit than with me. But she has been by my side, caring, loving. She is my family." The video left Alex and Sarah speechless, their accusations dying on their lips. The revelation of Eleanor's true feelings, her acknowledgement of my loyalty and care, was a vindication I hadn't known I needed. Alex, defeated and angry, stormed out, Marissa and the children trailing behind him. Sarah, her dreams of wealth evaporated, slinked away without another word. The mansion, once a battleground of wills and familial duty, was now truly mine. But it felt hollow without Eleanor. I wandered its halls, her words echoing in my heart. "She is my family." Starting fresh, right after the will reading that flipped my world upside down, I didn't waste any time. I filed for divorce from Alex faster than you'd believe. It was clear as day that whatever we had was buried under lies and betrayal. Plus, with the mansion and that apartment now legally mine, I had the grounds to kick him out. "You need to leave," I told him, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "The apartment, it's mine now. You and your new family need to find somewhere else." Alex tried to argue, his face red with anger and frustration. "You can't just throw us out. Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." "You made your choices, Alex," I shot back, tired of his excuses, tired of the drama. He left, cursing under his breath, and that was that. He and his second family started hopping from one rental to another. I heard through the grapevine that it wasn't going well for him, but that piece of news didn't stir anything in me anymore. Adjusting to the quiet after the storm of betrayal and legal battles was no easy feat, but I found solace in the familiar walls of the mansion, now truly mine. It was during one of these quiet afternoons, as I was enjoying a rare moment of peace in the garden, that Sarah showed up, looking more worn down than I'd ever seen her. "Hey," she called out, her voice lacking its usual bite. "Can we talk?" I stood up, brushing the dirt from my hands. "Sure, Sarah. What's on your mind?" She shuffled her feet, looking anywhere but at me. "I'm in a bit of a bind. The debts, they're piling up, and She choked on her words, the bravado that had defined her now gone. I crossed my arms, the weight of her past actions hanging between us. "You're asking me for money." "It's not just for me. I've got nowhere else to turn," she admitted, finally meeting my gaze. The part of me that had endured her laughter, her scorn, wanted to turn her away. But standing there, I realized that holding on to anger would only weigh me down. "Sarah, I can't help you. Not after everything." Her face fell, the last shred of hope vanishing. I get it. I was horrible to you and Mom. I just thought, maybe it's time you faced the consequences of your actions." "Like I had to," I said, not unkindly. "You need to figure this out on your own." She nodded, a resigned acceptance in her posture. "Yeah, I guess I do." Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work, reconnecting with friends, and slowly rebuilding the life that had been upended. The mansion, once a battleground of familial strife, began to feel like a home again. I found joy in small things, like the way the morning light filtered through the windows or the laughter of friends gathered in the newly renovated kitchen. Alex and his new family, Sarah and her debts, became distant echoes of a life I had once been a part of. In letting go, I found peace and a sense of freedom I hadn't known I was missing.